The completely new technology in MEDICOVI's hydrodynamic insoles provides an optimal protection of the diabetic foot. A technology in which the water in the insoles forces the sole of the foot into a continuous movement and thereby significantly increases the utilization of the energy content in the sole of the foot. A technology that improves the balance immediately and thereby reduces the harmful and escalating pressure load spinal of the neuropathy, which is by far the biggest reason for foot ulcers. In 2014, the health authority in Denmark provided information which said that approximately 22,000 were suffering from a foot ulcer and that an additional 3,000 people with diabetic foot ulcers are expected each year. Close to 2 diabetics every day are being amputated of either a toe, foot, or leg, performed because of a foot ulcer. Approximately 4,000 diabetics are suffering from an amputation. Surveys have found that neuropathy causes 70% of all diabetic foot ulcers. We are now going to provide an overview of how the MEDICOVI Hydrodynamic insole prevents the development of foot ulcers. We shall start by looking at the energy balance of the sole of the foot. In order to carry the body weight and to protect the nerves, blood vessels, and the tissue in the sole of the foot, the cells must be provided with the necessary energy. Tiredness and pain after a long period of strain on the sole of the foot is caused when the energy demand necessary for carrying the body weight, as well as the energy necessary for the protection of the nerves, blood vessels, and tissue, have combined been greater than the energy being supplied through the blood circulation. The energy balance in the sole of the foot has been exceeded.
The energy in the form of oxygen and glucose is added to the carrying cells of the sole of the foot through the capillaries, the fine blood vessels. In order for the cell to be able to absorb the strength-providing glucose, the insulin must be capable of opening the cell membrane. For diabetics, this means that the worse the regulation of insulin is, the less the cells of the sole of the foot absorb the strength-providing glucose. The strength and capability of the sole of the foot will become worse. This means that the energy balance of the sole of the foot is dependent on the regulation. A very frequent and late complication caused by diabetes is the development of the constrictions of the very fine blood vessels. The constrictions reduces the blood flow and thereby the energy supply to the cells in the sole of the foot. The result of the constrictions is that the total energy content and thereby the ability to carry the body weight and at the same time protect the nerves, blood vessels and tissue becomes poorer and poorer as the constrictions spread and increases in the blood vessels in the sole of the foot.
Because the body weight remains the same, the risk of exceeding the energy balance in the sole of the foot will continue to increase for the diabetic patient. The risk of developing foot ulcers is therefore constantly on the rise. It is therefore very important for the diabetic to utilize the sole's decreasing energy content as efficiently as possible and thereby achieve as great a protection of the sole of the foot as possible. This is exactly what is being achieved with MEDICOVI's hydrodynamic insoles. The shoe's fixing of the foot limits the exploitation of the foot's combined energy content. Because of the body weight is to a great extent carried by only a few small areas of the surface of the foot. Cell number 1 is thus being strained very often, whereas cell number 2 is basically freewheeling. This means that the energy content in cell number 2 is only to a limited extent being used to carry the body weight.
Many women are aware of the fact that if they experience discomfort or pain in the sole of the foot, it will help changing the shoes. The reason can be found in the fixing of the foot. The new shoe will always be fixing the foot slightly differently, and new cells will be taking the load from the body weight, as for instance cell 2, where the energy storage was not being used to carry the weight when using the previous shoes. Imagine we would be able to change shoes 100 times a day, and all the shoes would be fixing the foot differently. We would then be able to utilize the energy storage in all the cells in the sole of the foot, and the chance of discomfort and pain would then be very small. This is exactly what is achieved with MEDICOVI's hydrodynamic insoles.
The MEDICOVI Hydro Dynamic insole significantly increases the exploitation of the combined energy content of the sole of the foot. A great hydraulic pressure in the water in the hydrodynamic insole will immediately distribute the pressure load across a much larger area of the surface of the foot. This will reduce the pressure against the most exposed areas. Even the smallest movement of the body will create a powerful movement of the water in the insole, and this will create an intense massaging movement of the sole of the foot. The water movement will interrupt the shoe's fixing and inactivity of the foot and distribute the body weight over the whole surface of the foot. The energy in cell number 2 will now carry its part of the load, thereby utilizing the combined energy content in the sole of the foot much more efficiently. This corresponds to changing shoes 100 times a day. The shoe's static fixing of the foot will create a continuous strain on the same cells. MEDICOVI's hydrodynamic insole will move the body load across the whole of the sole of the foot. The result of using MEDICOVI's hydrodynamic insoles is thus: the energy content will be utilized by a much larger number of the cells in the sole of the foot. The time between the loads on each cell will be longer. The longer time is of specific importance to the diabetics, as the narrowing of the blood vessels will reduce the blood flow, and thus it will take longer to renew the energy in the cells. When the time between the strain on the cells is extended, the energy content in the sole of the foot will increase, and thereby the ability to protect the nerves and blood vessels. MEDICOVI's hydrodynamic insole is thus forcefully increasing the utilization of the total energy content in the sole of the foot by reducing the pressure load as well as distributing the load of the body weight across the surface of the sole through the water's movements. This will force a much larger number of the cells in the sole of the foot to take part in carrying of the body weight. This relief is at the same time a very strong pain reducer for the sole of the foot, knee, hip, and back. In their report, Doctor of Medicine Finn Boysen-Moller and Professor Michael Voigt have defined the MEDICOVI's insole's general function, a sensory massage of water wave therapy, which they have defined as continuously variable pressure relief of the area under the sole of the foot, continuous stimulation of the muscle activity and movement of the foot, increased awareness relating to posture and balance.
In order for the nerve to function, energy must be supplied continuously. In order to achieve this, there is a system of very fine blood vessels surrounding each individual nerve. Inside the blood vessels surrounding the nerves, narrowing occurs in the blood vessels in the same way as in the rest of the sole of the foot. This means that the energy supplied to the nerve is reduced or stopped completely in accordance to the development of the sickness. The diminished energy supply means that the protection surrounding the nerve will be reduced or disappear entirely. Thereafter, the nerve's ability to feel pain, pressure, cold, heat, etc. will cease to exist, to which neuropathy develops. The degree of neuropathy in the sole of the foot is therefore indirectly measured by how far the constrictions in all of the sole's blood vessels have spread, or an expression of how much the sole's collective energy supply has decreased. If neuropathy is observed, the risk of exceeding the energy balance in prone areas of the sole of the foot is increased, with foot ulcers likely to follow. With the appearance of neuropathy, the MEDICOVI's hydrodynamic insoles should immediately be used as a protection of the sole of the foot. Surveys have found that approximately 70% of all diabetic foot ulcers are caused by neuropathy.
The bigger the pressure that comes from the body weight and the longer the time this pressure lasts, the more energy the cells have to use in order to protect nerves and blood vessels. The cells in the prone areas of the sole of the foot are therefore severely challenged. If the energy balance in these cells are exceeded, then the cells will lose their protection capability and will be pressed together by the body weight. There is thereby created a pressure that compresses the blood vessels around the nerves together. This means that the blood flow in these blood vessels are reduced by the constrictions and by the compression of the body weight. When neuropathy occurs, there is a significant likelihood of neuropathy developing especially in the prone areas of the soles of the foot. The expansion of neuropathy in the sole of the foot occurs as a consequence of the constrictions in the fine blood vessels surrounding the nerves, as well as a result of the compression that these blood vessels suffer when the energy balance in the protected cells are exceeded. The cell's energy balance are evidently dependent on the pressure of the body weight and the time of which this pressure lasts. A prevention of the development of neuropathy in the sole of the foot can therefore be achieved through a reduction of the pressure and the time it lasts. This is exactly what is achieved through the MEDICOVI's Hydro Dynamic and protective insoles, where the pressure load is reduced at the same time as the body weight is constantly moved around on the sole in massaging water movements. It is very important to prevent the development of neuropathy because the neuropathy has a truly unfortunate influence on the balance. We never stand completely still. The body will always sway a little forwards and backwards. The bigger the sway, the poorer the balance. Leaning a little bit forwards, an increased pressure will occur against the front of the foot. The brain's balance center will use this pressure information to activate the muscle activities necessary to bring the body back to the point of equilibrium. Following the use of shoes, the balancing system will to a great extent receive the information from the sensory nerves located in the few and small areas on the surface of the foot, where the pressure from the body weight is located as a result of the shoe's fixing of the foot. Particularly in these strained areas of the sole of the foot, where the pressure is the greatest, will the tendency for the development of neuropathy be most likely. Development of neuropathy will cause the information to the brain's balance center to become poorer, and this will automatically reduce the balance, causing the natural sway to become larger. Following the greater sway as a result of the poorer balance, a more significant portion of the body weight will, during a longer period of time, put pressure on the exposed areas on the surface of the foot. The energy balance in these areas will therefore rapidly be exceeded, which will increase the pressure against the nerve's blood vessels further. In addition to that, this increased pressure will reduce the energy supply to the nerves, followed by a development of more neuropathy. A negative spiral thus develops, whereby the neuropathy reduces the balance, and the reduced balance will speed up the development of more neuropathy. An escalating development where a dramatic drop in the energy content is occurring inside the area of the sole of the foot, where the correlation between the neuropathy and the balance arises. A drop in the energy in the cells, which causes the cells to break down, whereby the tissue will be damaged and infection will occur between the skin layers. At some point, the infection will break through the skin layers, creating an open ulcer, a development which the diabetic is unable to detect before it is too late, because the damage of the sole's tissue happens inside the sole of the foot, and the neuropathy has at the same time rendered the sense of touch useless. Before getting spectacles, there will be a long time during which one is getting used to bad eyesight, until one day it becomes obvious that spectacles are needed. The same applies to the interaction between the neuropathy and the balance. One gets used to the bad balance. In order to suddenly acknowledge that there is something wrong with the balance, one will have to feel significantly unsteady. This is what is so very dangerous for the diabetic in relation to the development of foot ulcers, because one does not register that there is something wrong with the balance until it is too late, and the sense of touch has been rendered useless by the neuropathy. For the good of oneself, it is important, as early as possible, to prevent this development. This can be done by using the MEDICOVI Hydro Dynamic insoles. MEDICOVI's hydrodynamic insoles are the only type of insoles which automatically and immediately can improve one's balance. Through each small movement of the body, the water in the hydrodynamic insole will affect the sensory nerves across a very large area of the sole of the foot, and thus a large number of sensory nerves which are not suffering from neuropathy. The balancing system will react instantly in accordance with the powerful influence on the sensory nerves by performing an immediate improvement of the balance. By using the hydrodynamic insoles, the development of the neuropathy in the exposed areas of the sole of the foot will have a considerably less influence on the balance. The result of this is that most diabetics with balancing problems will immediately gain greater security with the hydrodynamic insoles. Under the management of Professor Pascal Madeleine and Professor U. Kersting, the Center for Motor Interaction, Aalborg University, has carried out a scientific analysis of the MEDICOVI insole's influence on balance, which has documented the insole's static as well as dynamic balance improving characteristics. MEDICOVI's hydrodynamic insole very forcefully increases the utilization of the total energy content in the sole of the foot, caused by the water's massaging effect. The load is being moved around on the surface, utilizing the energy content from most of the foot's surface. At the same time, the hydraulic pressure in the water will reduce the pressure against the exposed areas on the sole of the foot. The greatest reason for the development of foot ulcers is by far the neuropathy's negative, escalating pressure load spiral. The balance improving effect achieved immediately by using the MEDICOVI hydrodynamic insoles reduces the risk of this happening considerably. The hydrodynamic insole MEDICOVI D40 is constructed from a soft, pressure-distributing and comfortable EVA upper sole with a lower water-filled function-generating pressure wave massage sole. It is this unique patented construction of the water-filled massage insole which, through a technically controlled movement of the water, provides the efficiently preventing effect against the development of diabetic foot ulcers. In order to make the most of the usage of the protection of the diabetic foot when using MEDICOVI D40, we recommend changing the insole every 6 months. MEDICOVI D40 is 4.5 millimeters thick and is available in 7 sizes. Surveys have found that 70% of all diabetic foot ulcers are caused by neuropathy. Neuropathy, which is nearly always a late complication in connection with diabetes and is created due to the illness, will over time damage the very fine blood vessels in the body. To a significant extent, the prevention of diabetic foot ulcers seeks to counter or delay the problems, which are the results from the development of neuropathy in the sole of the foot. The MEDICOVI insole's prevention of diabetic foot ulcers does therefore not take away the responsibility from the individual diabetic sufferer to look after and take responsibility for his or her feet. For the diabetic sufferer, it is therefore very important to check the feet and the soles of the feet continuously and on a daily basis, and immediately seek professional help should irregularities occur. We thank you for your attention.